The campaign is in full swing, and sometimes it is the most trivial of moments which are the most telling.
Photos with everyone, okay?
It was an awkward moment, but not one any reasonable onlooker would begrudge Albanese. We've all tripped before, and although it was awkward that this moment was captured on camera, it wasn't really a big deal. That's why the Prime Minister's response to the fall in an ABC radio interview was simply bizarre.
Prime Minister, we saw that you fell from the stage in Cessnock this afternoon. Are you okay?
No, I stepped back one step. I didn't fall off the stage.
It looked like you went down. I'm glad to hear you're okay, though.
Indeed.
Thank you very much.
Just one leg went down, but I was sweet.
Now, it is true that he didn't completely fall off the stage, and perhaps the ABC journalist muddled the question a little bit by phrasing it that way. But to suggest that it was just the PM only taking a single backward step is just strange. We all saw it. He definitely fell down and had to be helped up. It isn't a big deal other than the fact that the PM felt the need to downplay it and tell you what you saw was not reality. Now, credibility will be everything this election. Albanese still has not apologised for taking flawed economic modelling to the last election, which falsely claimed that you would be paying less on your power bills. If he cannot be honest about a simple and harmless fall, then what confidence can anyone have when it comes to the big issues? Well, joining me now to discuss is the panel, the Daily Telegraph columnist Tim Blair and Sky News contributor Louise Roberts. Louise, utterly bizarre interview on the ABC. And I felt a little bit sorry for the presenter because the presenter seemed to just be reaching out and saying, essentially, are you okay? We saw you fell. And there was a denial of that very clear reality.
I found it a very strange thing to correct the ABC host on as well. We all know what we saw. He clearly came off the stage. Now, whether he tumbled or took a step back, whatever he did, when you watched that footage of the Prime Minister, you actually felt sorry for him. I mean, because he was politely manoeuvring his way behind the two union reps for a photograph. He didn't sort of say to them, get out of the way in any sort of imperious manner. And then he slipped off the stage. So I think why even bother correcting it? But was he concerned that it was going to become some kind of meme, that he'd be described as the fall guy or the stumbling PM or something like that? But arguably, it's now become the story rather than something that he could have just brushed off and said, I'm okay. It's fine.
Yeah, there could have been a very genuine fear, Tim, of what the media might do with it. But to me, it looked like this autocratic control over language. It's not a fall down, it's a step back. And how dare you phrase it in a manner that I don't like? I want it to be called a step down, so this is misinformation.
Well, you know, who do we believe? The Prime Minister or our own lying eyes? I mean, it'd be like me claiming right now that I'm not wearing a crappy $5 shirt that I bought at a petrol station.
It's a great shirt.
Everyone can see it. The video is right there. But I think the ABC interview, as you pointed out, might have muffled or fudged the question a little bit. But I think the fault is more on the Prime Minister, who came back with, I didn't fall off the stage, which was something that the ABC interviewer never said. Simply said that, you know, you fell. And then it was redefined. It was like NRL players complaining after the video review's gone against them, and we can all see what's going on. And just to keep the sort of sports metaphor going on here, I think the case here with the Prime Minister, if Richie Benno was still with us, he'd say, I think the viewers at home can make up their own minds about that one.
Yeah, we certainly can. It's a very easy one for us all to agree on. But moving on, one of Australia's most celebrated journalists has had his credibility shattered by an audio recording which has morphed into a complex court case. Nine reporter Nick McKenzie was the author of reports which accused veteran soldier Ben Roberts-Smith of war crimes. Now, Roberts-Smith ended up losing that defamation case, but shocking audio recordings between McKenzie and a witness known as Person 17 have sent the matter back to court. My colleague Shari Markson broke the story.
It's a verdict the Afghan veteran is appealing. But now secret audio recordings have come to light, which cast doubt on the ethics and even the legal process of part of the case built against him.
I shouldn't tell you. I've just breached my doing that. Like, this is where, this is put me to now.
An explosive recording has caught Nine-Star reporter Nick McKenzie claiming he'd engaged in unethical behaviour during their famous war crime case.
The statement about breaching his ethics relates to Mackenzie claiming that he should not have been disclosing certain information to person 17. But there was a more insidious revelation in the recordings which could impact the fresh legal challenge.
Briefing us on his legal strategy in respect of you.
If Mackenzie is to be believed, he and his legal team were fed privileged information by the ex-wife of Ben Roberts-Smith and acted on that information during the defamation case. Now, this is obviously a huge story, but the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, you know, the papers that carry that arrogant, self-serving marketing label, independent always, well, they took 3 days to cover the story. And in my opinion, the coverage has been shallow and subpar. Independent until inconvenient, it seems. And the ABC was even worse, ignoring the story for even longer until they were dragged into covering it when the matter returned to court. Now let's bring the panel back in. Now, Louise, quite a complex story, and putting aside the actual defamation case, the revelation of the recordings, surely there is merit in their existence. And it's a really bad look for the Nine newspapers because it involves one of their own. It's unflattering. Really bad look of them to just sit down on the story and lay dead.
Yeah, when it's one of your own, you really can't run away from the story. You do have to cover it. You can be quite careful how you do it, but you can't move away and leave yourself open to favouritism or perhaps not addressing an issue.
Particularly if it's your branding. Your branding,
it's your branding, the ethics, independent always, etc., etc. I found it quite challenging to listen to Nick talking about on that recording about his ethics because he's obviously a very accomplished reporter and investigator and won many, many awards. So I think this would be very hard for him to actually say those words as well. And Ben Roberts-Smith, of course, was a massive scalp for him to get. I guess in context, what does it mean now legally going forward and what will it do to perhaps restore the tarnished legacy of Ben Roberts-Smith as well, or if it will do anything? And sort of legion of people who look at Nick Mackenzie's reporting and people who support him as well.
Yeah, well, Tim, his legal team is alleging that it amounts to a miscarriage of justice. I mean, essentially, if he is to be believed and the legal team is acting on what was known to be privileged information, that's not how cases should be run, and the court will have a huge problem with that. But putting all that aside, just the issue of some of these organisations who are just so loud and arrogant and bragging about this whole idea of independence. Whether you agree or disagree, it has to be a story. Surely everyone can agree on that.
Oh, look, absolutely. But I don't actually mind when media organisations or outlets take a little bit of time to make sure they've got the facts lined up. I don't mind seeing the occasional scoop. Even at our own newspaper, we will occasionally miss a scoop if we're checking things, which is how things should go. And we see too often people rushing in, getting it wrong, and then having to recant. But in this case, the information was all out there. As you showed, Shari had the recordings. And 3 days to reflect and consider and suck your thumb about what this might mean, that's not, I mean, especially in the internet age. I mean, for a daily newspaper cycle in the old days, 3 days was an eternity. In the era of the internet, 3 days it amounts to deliberate concealment, I think.
Yeah, no, well said. Moving on now to the battle of debates, as Australia's broadcasters all fight for a chance to host public events with key political figures. And I'm proud to say that Sky News was the first off the bat, and our audience will get to see Albanese and Dutton lock heads on April 8.
Breaking news, Sky News has secured the first leaders' debate.
And a few days after Sky announced the debate, the ABC revealed that it too would host a leaders' debate, a week after ours. But in their excitement, the Ultimo-obsessed and incompetent PR flacks at the ABC told a small lie. ABC to host first free-to-air federal election leaders debate, the formal press release claimed. Now, we don't know if the ABC's overzealous approach to the truth was impacted by the fact that they have not managed to secure a single federal election leaders debate in a studio since 1992. But that isn't true, because Sky News has multiple free-to-air distribution points, including Sky News Regional. We also will put the debate on smart TVs for free and broadcast it for free across our radio products. But the people at the ABC who wrote the press release obviously have never left their elite enclaves to realise any of this. To them, if you live in the regions, you basically do not exist. They do not even tailor their press releases with you in mind. And this could explain why their regional coverage is becoming just so sad. Louise, it's this obsession, I think, as well, if you were, I guess, working in PR or marketing, to say first. We were first, we got it first, and quite clearly the news had been out, they weren't first. They're trying to find these little qualifiers to come up for the fact that they weren't, because they actually have a very shoddy record of being able to do this. And in my opinion, it's one of the very fundamental functions that the ABC should be providing as a debate, but they can't get off their seats to actually organise it. And they've really let people down by failing to do that for so many years.
Well, they've got the second debate. I don't think we can deny that's the case, despite their claims. But as the national broadcaster, they should be more focusing on the content of the debate and what the questions are that should be put to the Prime Minister and the opposition leader as well ahead of the May 3 election, rather than, as you say, claiming to be first. And I wonder whether some of this too is they're a little bit stung by Peter Dutton saying he's going to look very carefully at the funding that goes to the ABC.
Oh, yes.
I'm wondering if maybe if that is part of it. They're sort of trying to justify
Let's
their
see how
existence.
independent they are when the issue of their own funding comes up. Tim Blair, let's bring you in. Was it just an innocent mistake by an overzealous PR manager, or was it a slight to those in the regions?
It's a mistake or it's incompetence. And when an organisation's getting $1 billion thrown at it every year, I think we can make up our own minds again about that one. But I've got the distinct advantage here of being in a Sky News regional area. And one of the remarkable things about being in a free-to-air Sky zone is that the people who used to watch the ABC all the time, or at least had the ABC on the as sort of a background thing all the time, the TV was always on the ABC. They've now all crossed over to Sky. Sky is massively popular in the regions. It has far less funding, obviously, but it has far more impact, and it's talking to people in the regions. I think that's another thing the ABC's got to look at when it talks to people about its budget. Is it's got bureaus everywhere. I live around the corner in my town from an ABC bureau, and no one's watching it. No one cares. The ABC may as well be invisible in the regions.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And there'll be a lot of people watching the show tonight from Sky News Regional, and basically the ABC has left a deficit in the market for us to enter. And that's great. It means we get to talk directly to people in the regions, but it is an issue for them. Picking up on what you were saying before, though, about the debate, I'd be interested what you think the big issues are that the ABC should, and I guess what we should at Sky, be asking the leaders about.
Cost of living, number one. Undoubtedly, the pain people feel every day filling their tanks up or cruising the supermarket aisles, that is number one. That's what the ABC should be really analysing and saying, what are the issues? What are the key things? How, if either of you ends up in the lodge, what are you going to do to fix it? There's no time for equivocating on this. We actually want to know the policy detail at this point. Energy, of course. How often have we spoken about that? I mean, that kind of fugazi of the $200-odd reduction on the bill, which never happened, of course, and our borders, our national borders. People are very concerned about who's coming in and who's contributing to Australian society in the sort of realm of the tariff, obviously, situation with Trump too. So there's plenty for them to focus on. Yeah, it's all hip pocket focused, I would argue.
Definitely. And Tim, I think there is a danger for the ABC to do a debate from the perspective of someone from the inner city.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it might be hilarious, but it's not going to be hugely relevant to a lot of the voters. I mean, we've seen the Prime Minister arguing that he didn't fall. Well, an ABC inner city debate is more likely to be focused on men having babies. There's all manner of sort of issues of little concern that become massive concerns as soon as you start speaking of them within a certain building in Ultimo. So, good luck with that, ABC. It'll be fun to watch.